and welcome to another episode on Thinkers Unlimited. And courtesy the power of LinkedIn, I have my next guest on this show today. So please welcome Ms. Archana Shetty. Archana is an executive leadership and team coach and mentor. She is the CEO of WeLead, a consultancy company that provides data-driven insights and neuroscience-based interventions to improve team leadership and project performance without people burning out. Her thought leadership is on collaborative leadership and resilient self-directing teams. She specializes in emotional intelligence, leadership development, team building, and culture transformation. She's in the top 100 global thought leaders list curated by PeopleHum. She helps large to medium-sized companies and startups, mainly in tech and healthcare, build a culture where people love to work so that they can retain top talent and get great results from their teams without burning out, even in chaos and uncertainty. Archana has worked with multinational companies, including the largest banks in MENA, government and health sector. She brings over 20 years of corporate experience leading multicultural, diverse, global hybrid teams. She has been coaching and mentoring corporate executives and teams since the past 8 years. She is a certified Daniel Goleman associate and coach on emotional intelligence. She is ICF certified, Marshall Goldsmith and GCG executive and team coach. So thanks a ton, Archana, for accepting my invite for today.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant, for that generous introduction. And before we start, I really would like to congratulate you on this wonderful initiative. And I noticed 2 or 3 things what I found about you that was quite impressive. One is through this entire series, you're allowing people to rethink and think about ideas and situations, which I think we need at this moment of uncertainty and chaos, because the old ways aren't working. We need new ideas, fresh thinkers. So there's one thing commendable about you. And another thing, what I like about your work is you bring diversity. I just listened to another interview where you got many guests with diverse thoughts were brought into perspective. So that's another thing what I like. And the third thing what I like about your work, being a doctor, you are at an edge. You're moving into a world of leadership and bringing in different elements into this space, which very few people actually have the courage to venture out of the field and play a dance at that edge, what I call. And that is where the growth lies. So really appreciate you for all the 3 things that I have spoken about. So congratulate and well done on your work.
Thanks a ton for the encouragement. It goes a long way in my pursuit of interacting and meeting people like you. So let's get this conversation started. So one question everyone searches the answer of is, what is the difference between managing and leading? Your thoughts on this?
So this is a question I get often asked, and more so now during these times, Dr. Prashant. Management is about managing the resources in terms of people, time, money, etc. So you manage resources to get things done to meet your goals or business objectives. And the focus here is focus on management is more on optimization, on efficiency. So you tap into your cognitive thinking, cognitive mind, and get the best work done. And this process is generally methodical and process driven. So you optimize the process so more work gets done efficiently. So that's management. Whereas now what we need is leadership. And leadership is about enablement, empowerment. It's about enabling people towards a vision or towards a future what probably they haven't seen. And during this uncertain times, everything looks gloomy. It isn't certain. So you need leaders where they can create a vision, create a compelling vision that acts like a magnet towards the people. So that's a vision. And to create a powerful vision, you tap into your soul, you tap into your heart. And that's where you create a vision that is touching people's heart. And when you touch people's heart, you get people along with you towards that vision, which they may have dreamt of or which you may not even be certain as a leader. So that's leadership. It's about crafting a powerful vision, and it involves not only your cognitive, but also your creative mind, because that's where your imagination, your dreams, your hopes lies. So you're tapping into your heart, your soul, your creativity. And that's where you connect with people. And we lead in today's time, we need not only management. Of course, management is required to optimize the process, get more work done, but you need more leaders who can pull people towards that compelling vision. It often reminds me of Kennedy's speech of man to the moon. What he did with that speech was he got people together towards that vision which they never have dreamt of. So that's a vision, that's leadership.
Wonderful. I think thoughts for the managers for what they are missing and what they need to be doing to be able to lead their teams.
Yeah, it's more like a forward thinking process than thinking of the current and optimizing. It's more of a forward thinking creative process.
Great. So ever since the COVID-19 pandemic sprung upon humanity, all of us are looking for practical tips when leading remote teams. What does one keep in mind when in such a situation, according to you?
So what the pandemic has done, especially now, and in the pandemic, most of them, suddenly everybody went virtual. So everybody was, looking for ways to lead or manage remote teams effectively. And now what I see is, again, there's a shift towards hybrid. So half of them are remote, half of them are on site. So that adds to the complexity of managing and leading teams. And one of the things that I think is missing or can be done or improved is on communication. So how do you communicate? Because the ways that you communicate with a face-to-face team is different when you work remotely or when you work hybrid. Right. So one of the things that is extremely important, again, it always begins with a vision. Where are you going? If it is a team is nothing but a group of people working towards a shared purpose. So they all have a shared goal, a shared purpose. So it is the role of the leader and the responsibility of the leader to share these expectations of what the shared purpose is. And how do you do that? You communicate and over communicate. There has to be clarity in the objective and also in the communication. And how do you do that? You have to be very careful about the modes of communication that you use. If a conversation takes more than 2 sentences, email is not the right way of communication. I recently wrote a post on LinkedIn where I've seen leaders and teams, a team of 30 people communicating back and forth on emails, and they were not reaching a point after 5 days. So email is not the best place of communication. In that case, just pick up the phone and clarify the issue, brainstorm. So you have to identify what is the right way of communication, whether it is email, whether it is texting, whether it is a collaborative tool like Slack that you need to get work done, whether it is WhatsApp, but decide on the way of communication. Important is also clarity of the objective. What are you trying to achieve with this project? Because if you have multiple teams who's sitting offsite, who's sitting, on shore, then it becomes difficult. So you have to have that clarity of communication. And another thing, especially with IT firms, what I've seen is most of the teams are global. So there's again this cultural issue that comes into place, right? What you talk is easily misunderstood or misread. So it is very important, especially communication is very important when you deal with multicultural and a multi-generational workforce as well. The older generation, the baby boomers, what you call them, are not so tech savvy. So how do you get them on board? Whereas the younger generation or the Gen Z or the millennials are, very prone to the social media, are very adapt with this technology skills. So they're used to sending emojis or they're used to sending the short text messages. So you have to understand the nuances of that goes with the communication. Because in face-to-face communication, what happens, Dr. Prashant, is you understand the tonality, you understand the body language, which is extremely important because that is where you drive connection with the teams. And connection is extremely important. It is not that I've seen meetings that happen for 30 minutes gets prolonged to 1 hour and the objective is not met. Because the agenda is not known, people are not clear about their roles, and also people feel a little lost. And with so many things going on all over especially because the pandemic has come and hit at a global level, so teams are feeling a little lost. So you have to take at least 5 minutes or a few minutes at the beginning and end of the meetings to actually personally check in on your team members, connect with them at a personal level, and these small changes make a big difference. So these are some of the practical things that people can do. And of course, when you are in a video communication tool like this, where to place your camera, how to present yourself, and some of the team members may not be comfortable in front of the camera, maybe for personal reasons, maybe there's a lot going on at the background, maybe there are family members. So you have to take into account the reality of life. I always felt, and I'm saying this more and more, we have trained people to be doers, especially in India. We have trained people we're excellent at doing things, executing things. But somewhere down the line, we have lost our touch with the human side of people. And my job, and I feel our responsibility, is to bring the humanity back to business. So we not only need to be doers, but thinkers, where we can bring in new ideas, also feelers, bring the humanness in business. And that's where you get the best work done from people, especially during these times. So these are small things which, anybody can accommodate. I was just talking to somebody, an HR lady, and she was saying, we have best compensation packages and we have, but that is not what, all that people need. People need money, but that's only to a certain level. People need more than that. People need recognition. People need challenging work. People need, that belonging to work. And that is what every leader can do within their own, sphere of influence.
So I think excellent food for thought. I think with the hybrid work culture looks like it's here to stay. And I think as organizations, we need to mold our culture and, the way we handle people in a way that we are not just prepared for the short term, but for the medium and the long term. I think because the ones who are able to adapt are the ones who will be able to flourish and others will be left behind. So a lot of food for thought for people to look at.
Another thing what I wanted to bring in the mindset when you spoke of leadership is also having time for downtime. We see leaders and team members running from one meeting to another. So they're not in that mindset where they can contribute their best in the meetings, right? Do you really need meetings? Not all the time. There can be work done asynchronously. So leaders and project leaders have to put into thought, put intentionality into the process. Do we really need a meeting to get this work done? If yes, then schedule a meeting. If not, you can do it offline through offline communication, and intentionally put in some downtime between the work so people can get to think. This pandemic calls for agility in not only in ways of working, but in ways of thinking. How can you work differently? What are the things that has worked really well? These are questions that leaders should ask of themselves and also within the team members. Many of the team leaders are afraid to ask for help. And I find that is a skill that needs to be developed, because you as a leader, you may not have all the answers, and it's okay to not know all the answers. It's okay to not know all the answers. You have the best team, you get the best from the best. So create a culture where you help the best people to thrive. And when you create a culture, create an environment where you have the best people and give them the space to thrive, you have the answers from the team. But create a space so that you can get the best from them.
Wonderful thoughts. So let's move on. Your thoughts on how to achieve that elusive work-life balance. I think everybody is curious to know, what are your thoughts on it?
Now, 2020 has been a ridiculously tough year, and it has been overwhelming and frustrating, and in many levels, professional levels, people have lost their jobs. People in the Middle East, where I am from, there has been huge pay cuts. People have been laid off overnight, where they had to send their families back and then decide, which is a new world for me. So it has been tough. It has been really, really tough. And in these tough times, I don't think, Dr. Prashant, there is anything called as a work-life balance. I've never believed in that work-life balance, actually. When I think of a balance, it reminds me of a seesaw, where you stand in between, and then there is a balance, right? So balance means you're standing still. It's stasis. And that stasis, as you know, is before death. And that is not a good place to be in. Instead, what I like to think about work life is oscillations. So, how do you oscillate between work life? And it's not only work life, there are other domains of our life which we often miss, like a social life, like a voluntary work, like a personal, spiritual life. So, these are the domains. So, there are many elements in our life. And we are always, especially in India, we have always focused on work and then life and missing out on all the other domains. A spiritual domain is as important to our well-being as a work domain. Our relationships are as important to our well-being as our work domain. Our health is as important. Corona is now, has been an evidence how important our health is. So there are many domains. In fact, I think the Dr. Tal Ben Shahar, who I greatly admire, he says the number one predictor of happiness is not money, it is relationships. So how much are you investing in your relationships? So you have to oscillate. It's like the seasons of life. In certain periods, like a farmer, in certain seasons he grows certain fruits or certain vegetables. In another season he moves to another other fruit or vegetable. So he oscillates between one season to another. And who can tell you what season is important for you? Not me, but you yourself, because you know deep dive inside your heart what is important for you at this period of life. I also, in a LinkedIn article, I wrote about this very paradox of work-life balance. And where I said it is like a orchestra, you have different instruments playing, and think of yourself like a maestro. You're playing the different instruments of your life domains. And if you play all of them at the same pitch, it's noisy. It's not good to hear. How do you create beautiful experiences is when one goes up and another goes down. So you play at different pitches. So these life domains are like different pitches. You get to choose. You are the maestro. You get to choose which domain is absolutely critical for me at this time of my life. And then bring in some intention and create that beautiful experience for yourself, because you should be happy at the end of the day that you're playing a beautiful music. And then create that experience for somebody else. So it's always, dancing between, I'm a classical dancer, so I always like to think of dance. So you're playing the dance between yourself and also creating an experience for others. So that is, I don't believe in work life. It's a flawed concept. Think of it like oscillations, like the seasons of life, like the maestro who is playing a symphony orchestra. So that's my thought on work life integration, if you call it.
So everybody who's looking at life as 180 degrees need to kind of open up and look at it at 360 degrees. I think, cover all aspects and give them the adequate attention and time.
Yeah, like if you have to go up a balcony and look down from the balcony and see of different elements. Think of yourself playing the different elements. What music you need to play now. So stand, take a step back and then choose, rather than, okay, I have to do it all. Let go of the thinking that you have to do it all. There's nothing like do it all.
True. So one phenomenon, many have been grappling for, a long time is burnout. Your insights on this, and how does one avoid it?
Now, I have been always, I can talk from personal experience. I've experienced burnout. I've always been a high achiever myself. So I always wanted to do this and this and this and this. It is always, it led to a stage where I felt that it is not going to work. I was in a place where I needed some help. And I realized that burnout is not a good place to be in. It is not a place where you can put in your best work. So burnout, typically what we think of burnout is, it is exhaustion, fatigue to work and stress and overwhelm. Yes, that is one element of burnout. So what I did when I was experiencing this burnout, I went into research of what actually burnout is. So Christina Maslach, she's a professor at University, I think, of California, where she describes burnout. It is not a pathological or clinical, disease, but it is something which is caused by an occupational hazard. So when you overwork, or when there are many elements that contribute to burnout, but it's an occupational hazard. And it is not only exhaustion or only fatigue. It's a combination of you feel exhausted, you feel highly cynical, you feel, the work is not a good place to be in, you feel cynical of your work, you feel cynical of the environment, you feel cynical of your colleagues. So that's this kind of cynicism. And the third element is inefficacy. You feel you're not doing your best work, you're incompetent. So that kind of feeling of inefficacy, these are all the three components. When they combine together, it is called as burnout. And there are 6 elements that actually contribute to burnout. One of them is workload. So, and especially during last year, what has happened, why people are experiencing burnout. In my own research, I did a research with global leaders across the globe, and increase in workload has been a constant theme across all the domains and all the leaders and team members. So increase in workload, sudden increase in workload, of course, in certain sectors. So that is one of the element. And then other element is, sometimes you feel you're not treated fairly at work, right? So that, deep down, it causes that kind of frustration. So unfair treatment. So that is that is the second element that causes burnout. And third element is the sense of community, which I was alluding to earlier. People don't feel that they belong to a certain organization or, cause or a mission. So that, and this is one element, again, in addition to the feeling of burnout and overwhelm and increased workload. This has been a constant theme last year. People didn't feel that they belonged to an organization. They worked because they had to work. There was no, feeling of belongingness. So lack of feeling of belonging. Another element is, again, coming to recognition. People don't feel like they're rewarded enough for their work. And recognition is not only money, it is also appreciation for the work that you're doing. And another thing is about misfit or misalignment to what you want to do and what the organization asks you to do. And these are some of the things that leads to burnout. One of the things that I have often noticed is, when work is given, there has to be, when do you get your best work done? It is between your competence and your challenge. So I have to feel competent enough to do this work, as well as it has to be challenging enough to do, right? So it's a balance where I feel that I'm challenged, as well as I feel competent. That's the right sweet spot. Last year, what happened was because suddenly everything went remote, so managers felt they lost control of the people. Unfortunately, many of the people relate, or many of the managers or leaders relate productivity to the clock in time and clock out time. So when they saw that they couldn't see the people at work, they felt, they started micromanaging people, calling people on exactly what you're doing at what time, and all this. So people felt that the autonomy was lost. And this is extremely important, to do your best work. And it comes under the self-determination theory of motivation. Autonomy of work is equally important to get your best work done. So these are some of the reasons why burnout is caused. So leaders intentionally have to craft out a space where they can create a place where people can thrive. And this is where you create the best cultures. In my own work, working with teams, I focus on 3 main areas. One is alignment. So alignment to the organization mission, vision, purpose. So that's where you create a shared purpose. And another one is bond. So you create a sense of community, a sense of belonging. So that's team bonding. And the third thing is around trust. So how do you build trust in your teams? If the trust is lost, you lose your team. So maybe the work is done, but it's only for the short term. So these are the 3 elements, and I have many other things that comes into picture, but these are the broad categories where you have the best work done. And you have meeting each of these 3 elements, a large amount of burnout can be reduced.
And looking at the stress, I think people think that work from home is less stress, but I think people have been more stressed because of work from home. And I think at that point of time, which is very surprising, people will be thinking that why more burnout is happening now compared to what probably was happening pre-pandemic. Wonderful pearls of wisdom. I think if people can implement these things, I think it is a top-down, bottom-up approach. If everybody is looking at, creating that alignment and creating that bond and feeling of being part of a family, that organization should feel like a family, you will have lesser stress. And of course, the impact of that would be that there'll be lesser burnout. So, wanted to ask you, what is the success mantra behind self-directing teams that thrive across various industries?
Now, we have been hearing a lot about self-directed, and I work a lot in this space. And how can we help create self-directing teams? Now, self-directing teams are team members are empowered. They feel they don't need direction. They work on their own to get the best work done. So that's self-directing. And this may not work in all the environments where you need direction. For example, in a manufacturing sector or in operations where a work is too operational, a standardized process or a procedure has to be followed. So there has to be direction. But during these times, when there's a lot of uncertainty, we don't always want people to work in a certain way. We want them to think out of the box, or we want them to, or there is no box, I would call, there's no box. So you have to think differently. So you have to, you need agile ways of working. You need agility. You need the best ideas. You need innovation. So at that moment of time, if you can create self-directing teams, so that is where the best innovation happens or creativity happens. So that's the concept of self-directing. It's not that it would work in every environment, but specifically when you want certain kind of work to be done, especially on the creative agility, innovation side of things. And for this, again, I come back to these three basic elements. When you're able to inspire, when you're able to empower your teams, when you're aligning the team members to your vision, to your values, because that has to be a fit between the organization values as well as the team member values. What is important for the team member? And I don't know, many organizations are really focusing on this, even when the hiring process, because once you have done all the hiring process, you've onboarded the team member, and then you realize that, there is a misfit between the team members' values and the organization values. It's too late. You've already lost a lot of time, energy, effort, and money. So there has to be a fit between the vision, the purpose, and the values. I think this is one gap what I see. Again, the right dose. It's not only challenging work, the right dose of autonomy and direction. So when do you direct a team, and when do you give them the autonomy to do that work? I always say there has to be clarity and there has to be assertiveness in the vision or in the purpose. But the how to reach there is the flexibility that many leaders can give to the team members. You do your own work, but this is the objective we need to meet. That's when they feel empowered. That's when they start thinking, oh, I need to meet this objective. How can I meet this? These are my own ideas. So this is where you create self-directing teams. And in short, like it's a model that I have developed, but in short, I would like to say it's about the 7 C's, which is about clarity of thought. Clarity of thought is, again, where we are going. It's the larger purpose. Compassion and connection. So I spoke about care and compassion. So compassion is about empathy in action. So I empathize with you as a team member, but what can I do for you? How can I remove your bottlenecks so that you can do your best work, right? So that is compassion and connection. And curiosity in communication. Curiosity in communication is when you're asking a lot of questions to your team members to help them reach their goal as well as their organization goals. So your leaders have to be insanely curious. What's going on? Maybe something is wrong. Normally, a high-performing team member is not performing now. So what's going on? So in curiosity and communication, candor feedback. So compassion doesn't mean you're being nice to people and always saying yes and no. We have to give candor feedback. You have to be supportive because ultimately it is their growth, right? We want our team members to grow. And when they grow, we grow. So you have to be candor in your feedback, radical candor. Give direct feedback. That's constructive. That's supporting him as well as the organization. 5th one is consistent action. You got to continuously grow, learn. I call this experimentation. Implement certain things, learn what is working well, what is not working, tweak it, and bring it back. So that's consistent action. The 6th one is generous contribution. Contribution is about contributing as an individual team member towards the team, and as a team contributing to the organization, and as an organization contributing to the larger good. So you see the circles. From an individual, it goes to the team. From the team, it goes to the organization. And from the organization, it is beyond that. That is where, millennials are more passionate about. How is my work connecting to the organization? And how is the organization purpose connecting to the larger good? What good is my organization doing to the larger good? So that's generous contribution. And the seventh one is community. Do I feel like I belong to this community? So these are the 7 C's. And when you're able to do this, I've worked with many teams. There's a greater amount of commitment. There's a greater amount of accountability, confidence, and collaboration. Because what I have seen in my work with teams is many of the teams work in silos. Why we don't get the best work done is we don't collaborate towards a single mission. So you are great individually, but they're not, as a team. So how could we collaborate together and get the best work done? So these are my 7 C's.
Wonderful. And I think one of my favorite companies, and I'm inspired by them and what they do, is Apple. And I think what they've been able to achieve of, innovating and continuously innovating. It's not just they stop at one, they continue to surprise us. And the way their team structure and the way, I think Steve Jobs said, we hire smart people and then allow them to do work. I think one of the problems that we find is that we micromanage and kill the passion and enthusiasm of people who actually want to do a lot, and they become silent. And I think that is something which is really, really criminal to the talent that you're hiring into organizations.
Absolutely. You brought in a very, very important point, which I missed to talk about at the beginning when you got a very important point. This is a concept called a psychological safety. It was introduced in Google when they found out what are the elements where you create amazing workplaces. And they drew upon Dr. Amy Edmondson's work on psychological safety. So psychological safety is creating an environment where team members are allowed to fail. They're not afraid to speak up. They're not afraid to challenge their peers. They're not afraid to speak up to their bosses. They're not afraid to fail. And when you create an environment and fail, and of course learn from the failings and then try again. So that's what they mean by fail. But when you create that environment of psychological safety, you get the best work done. So this is what is missing in many parts of the world and in many organizations. Because if I do something, my boss will fire me, or if I say something, my peers may not like, or I may not be liked by my peers, or I'll be disrespected. So we want to be nice to people. But when we're being nice to people and when we're afraid to do things, we're not taking the risk and we're not innovating and we're staying stagnant. And in these times, we don't want to be stagnant. And in India, we have the best talent, but we are afraid to take the leap. Like what you have done, Dr. Prashant, you have taken the leap, you're at the edge, you're dancing at the edge. This is where we need people. We need people to think and rethink and challenge their own assumptions. Maybe what I'm speaking, I might speak differently after 10 or 15 years because I'm getting more data. I'm challenging my own thinking. And that is what we want people to be. Leaders are more about being and more about feeling, more about thinking. It's not only doing. We're focused on one aspect and we've forgotten the other 3 aspects of thinking, feeling, and being. And I want to see, our Indian young generation focus on all the 4 elements. We can see the best coming out from India.
So I can totally speak on the audience behalf that today's interaction has fulfilled, our mind's quest for insights on such relevant topics of common interest. So wishing, Archana, you more power to your pursuits. And to the audience, please let your encouragement in the form of likes, comments, shares, and subscription to the channel continue. It means the world to me. And so until we meet again, stay inspired, stay safe, and thanks a ton, Archana, for doing this.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant, and continue doing the good work. I would like to end with Maya Angelou's quote. She says, "The desire to reach the stars is ambitious. The desire to reach the hearts is wise." And what we need, people or leaders today, is to reach the hearts. And you can see magic happen. I've got
Wonderful.
A small worksheet, which I'll share with you, Dr. Prashant, and you can put it in the links. So
Surely.
that will help people, not only reach their objectives, not only with the technical skills, but you need emotional and social skills. So I've just, formulated that in a small checklist, which I hope will help your audience. So thank you so
Thanks,
much for
Archana.
having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Archana.